I call Meka Whaicheri.
Tēnā koe, Mr Speaker, tēnā tātou katoa. Mr Speaker, I just want to acknowledge the last speaker from the Treasury benches, Mr Bishop, for his multifaceted contribution in defending this bill. The only problem is I was looking interestedly and listening for the multi-part and the faceted part, so alas not to be. Mr Speaker, Labor supports any initiatives that assist first home buyers into affordable homes. But Mr Speaker, there is a roaring fire across the country. The fire is called a serious housing crisis, and I liken this bill to a water pistol attempting to put out that roaring housing crisis fire. And Mr Speaker, so I'm listening to the national members and they're defending a bill that's going to address housing affordability in New Zealand, and I've left stumbled to hear the rationale why this bill is going to address that, Mr Speaker. But let's turn to the purpose of this bill. The bill implements part of the government's HomeStart package, Mr Speaker, to enable people to withdraw government contributions to the KiwiSaver account to buy a home. The other part of this bill, Mr Speaker, is it makes amendments to ensure income replacement payments under the Veterans Support Act 2014 are treated the same as ACC payments, making them subject to tax and allowing the partner of a deceased veteran to claim their working for families tax credit. Mr Speaker, when I listen to the contributions, particularly from our side, and say, in my experience and going up and down my electorate of Ikoro Rāwhiti, the housing crisis goes beyond what this bill is attempting to do. It is, like previous speakers on this side have said, the supply issue is real. The supply issue is real, and yet what we've got in front of us doesn't even address the supply issue. Unlike the Labour's policy of Kiwi Build. That is a complete policy initiative aimed at building 10,000 homes to arrest the supply issue we have in the country. But no, Mr Speaker, here we have in front of us today debating the Taxation, KiwiSaver, HomeStart and Remedial Matters Bill. But there is a housing shortage, and there's been contributions around the reality of that, but I, as a member for Ikoro Rāwhiti, can guarantee that we have housing shortages right throughout my electorate, Mr Speaker. So when I go through and I ask myself the questions that this bill is attempting to address, one of the questions that comes to mind, Mr Speaker, is will this bill improve home ownership? That's the question I ask, Mr Speaker. Will it improve home ownership? The answer, Mr Speaker, is no. How do I come to that conclusion, Mr Speaker? The Cabinet paper. What did the Cabinet paper say on HomeStart? It said, noted the impact on home ownership will be small and cancelled out by rising interest rates. This is in the Cabinet paper, Mr Speaker. Quote, the impact on the proportion of owner-occupiers is expected to be small, as most recipients of a HomeStart grant would have purchased a house eventually anyway. While the grant will make a material contribution to first home buyers' ability to raise a deposit, the grant makes no difference to the cost of servicing a mortgage. With mortgage rates expected to rise to 7.5% over the next 2 years, you had your turn. Higher finance costs are likely to reduce the number of first home buyers able to purchase their first home. Mr Speaker, generally when we bring legislation into this House, we take advice from officials. Treasury officials themselves have said, and I quote, Mr Speaker, in their advice to Cabinet, Treasury does not support the expansion of first home buyer assistance subsidies at this time, given that they stimulate demand for housing when demand is already outstripping supply. Mr Speaker, like I said in my opening contribution, this is a water pistol trying to put out a roaring fire called the housing crisis. Kia ora tātou.